Apyayantu mamangani vakpranashchakshushrotramatho balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranam Astva Nirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 1 has concluded the Vedantic vision, and proceeding on to chapter 2, it wants to add some nuances, some details to help us relate it from different angles. And we said last session in verse 2.1 that, in fact, the teacher said, if you think you know Brahman well, you know Brahman little. And this is, a strong statement. It's like, what do you mean by that? Have I misunderstood? Because everything made sense so far. And it doesn't mean that because everything made sense that it didn't make sense. It didn't mean to hurt your understanding or doubt your understanding. It just wants to point out how careful one needs to be not to go sidetracked somewhere, because one little misunderstanding can take you on a tangent. And we said 2 ways by which you can ensure that you're not turning the reality into an image, because the tendency of the mind is to do so. It's just what the mind does, it's how the mind is. And thus, we said yesterday, the first thing is, in fact, the takeaway in this course is it requires some thoughtfulness. And Vedanta, of course, isn't for everyone because not many are willing to use their minds. But this is where we think. Manushya. Manushya means thinking being. And that is in Sanskrit, name for a human being. So if you really want to be a human being, without just saying I'm a human being, then you are a Manushya. And Manushya means literally thinking being. So if I go somewhere to some place and they're telling me, just have thoughtlessness and don't think and use your mind and go into silence, then you're contradicting your very purpose for being a human being, which is to use this sophisticated instrument and to think what is the nature of reality, what is all of this, and that requires time, effort. It's not meant to be done by the guru, it's uplifting yourself by yourself, thinking by yourself, introspecting by yourself, self-reflecting by yourself, self-inquiring or just inquiring by yourself. And this by yourself goes until year by year, day by day, week by week, as much time as one is sensibly capable of putting into their life. And thereby, we said, to understand Brahman as not an image, we perform a Satya Mithya analysis. And this can be done with absolutely anything. You can be walking in a park or looking at the ground, anything. And we can perform an inquiry. We say, this form is entering my mind. This is a form. This is a form. And this form is made up of smaller forms. It's forms within forms within forms, and every form makes up another bigger form. For every form we give a name, but all of those names are only from that standpoint. The moment you go down smaller, that name upwards no longer applies. Now a new name is true, but then if you look at that name no longer applies either, because it is made up of smaller names. So they're all just names upon names upon names upon names, just to define a different form. For example, a wood is different from the table or the chair in sense of, right, the substance is the same, but also you have to give it a different name to see different orders of reality. It's not like they're two things, but the way that the world works is it's made of smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller constituents. This is why quantum physics is, for some so interesting, because they want to see the world of the small. And really, what you're really doing is you're worshiping Ishvara, but unknowingly. You're admiring the smallness that makes up the bigness. And it's so interesting for these scientists, to see, wow, the world is made up of smaller things. What we're seeing is just like nothing that quantum physics tells us, or even biology or research. You look at genetic research, and you have right now in you a blueprint that makes your body, ACGU, proteins, basic proteins, 4 of them, arranged in different patterns. Sometimes A, G, U, I think it's UT, one of those. 4 patterns only, 4 proteins, arranged in different combinations. Just 4 proteins basically makes up all of the differences in your body. Like binary, 001, 110, all of them produce different combinations. And people study this. There's a field called bioinformatics, and this is where one of my friends does this, and she researches, it's called gene research. So you take this data from genetics and you have to feed it inside computer servers and process and discover patterns to discover how can we make this protein, what makes a cancerous protein, what makes cancer, what makes breast cancer, what makes cancer of the liver, what starts the whole process. And so she's looking into these genes. It's all data, by the way. It's all just information, knowledge. So knowledge in genes is just rearranging itself. A, C, G, U, U, G, G, C, A, U, G, C, C, U, 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 A, T, U, C, A, etc. All of that is generating your body right now. The way that your face looks, how and what happens when there's a little scar and how it repairs by itself. And she enters this inside these programs built in Python, or actually they use the language called R. R is for data science. And she has to find some patterns, how a certain, for example, 100,000 of these combinations, A, U, U, G, C, C, 100,000 of them, you feed into just a little portion, you feed into the program, and you have to see how can I find a pattern that generates a potential cancerous cell. This is ongoing, because there's so much data just in genes. So it's just knowledge within knowledge, within knowledge, within knowledge, within knowledge. So much knowledge. And every field that we create in this world, not that we create, but we discover something, and then we form different viewpoints that supports that one field of study, like geography. You look at the weather patterns, or you look at the evolution, how we had 4 extinction cycles in this world since 4.5 billion years plus minus, and every extinction cycle gave way for the new type of species. In fact, the last extinction of the dinosaurs gave way to mammals, and mammals gave way eventually to primates, and eventually, hello now, monkeys. Okay. So Vedanta, by the way, doesn't contradict evolution. Okay, evolution is a natural part of the physical body growing up. So this means that when the world is created, then the jiva has to wait to come to this level when they can ask the question, who am I? So this means, suppose you don't understand who you are, and eventually we have a macrocosmic dissolution, the world, the universe disappears. Well, you're still okay. You're just in one long deep sleep, very, very long deep sleep. But then when the new cycle of creation comes, then eventually you have to wait for, right, the gases to combine under high pressure to, start forming planets. And the star is there, and then the star will have this, gravitational pull and start, the planets can start to revolve around the star, the sun in our case. And you have to wait for situations to happen such that water can come. How did water come? Scientists still don't know. They say from volcanoes, from all the evaporation of the steam, maybe from that it came. They don't know quite yet. There are some theories. How did water come? Why is water not on Mars? And then slowly, life has its way. First, cyanobacteria comes. One-celled organism comes. Single cell. Takes billions of years of a single cell to eventually find a way to form two cells. Multicellular organism now starts. Eventually plants come, bacteria, and it evolves. Fish. And then somehow the atmosphere starts to get nourished with a little bit of oxygen. All of this intelligence, how it all takes place, none of us we can hypothesize, we can give you good models, but ultimately what I'm saying is to appreciate the vast amount of intelligence, how it's all taking place eventually to create walking beings, and then to be able to become self-conscious, like I am doing this. Make fire, and then to make sounds, ooh, ooh, ah, 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 ooh, ooh. And then you say something more intelligible. No. This means no. Like this. Language evolves billions and billions of years. And this is the evolutionary cycle now. And eventually the person can say, oh, who am I? And then that individual can now finally start to inquire about this one who has evolved for billions of years.
I think it's got to do with this, but it's also about yesterday. So we have this creation, apparent creation. It's started with the Vikshepa Shakti, no? And then, and we're all Brahman, we're all kind of one, and there's all knowledge, but still we're in our mind. We're just in this bundle. One person sees this, and the other person sees this. So is that because of the Avarana Shakti? I mean, it's all one knowledge, one power. But so the Avarana Shakti reveals for every person everything that's got not to do with this specific jiva. Am I correct in this understanding? Because there's always this question. So we're all one, but why are we all in this specific?
Right. So we're
view of life. We have a specific.
Right. So okay.
Could you say Avarana Shakti
It's both. It's both because Vikshepa projecting, just like your own dream, you through your Vikshepa Shakti, you project many. And because your Avarana, right, your power to hide information, you do the exact same thing in a dream, by the way. Use these two powers, Vikshepa to project your dream, and your dream then gets, right, hidden. Certain information gets hidden. One character, another character, and every character has only so much information about themselves. So from everyone's standpoint, it seems like, right, I am one unit, you're another unit, you're another unit. So the whole thing, both the subject and the object, is a manifestation of one reality. Okay? So that's how the setup is. That's just how the setup is. This is Ishvara's creativity to create different beings who are, who feels like you're here and not over there. But actually, you are now everywhere. Okay? Now you say, well, why don't I experience myself, not myself, but why don't I experience as I am everywhere? That is because the setup is such that you're not supposed to. That's just how the setup is. So there's no reason to kind of explain it. Well, it's because of ahamkara, it's because, it makes you individual. Even if you say that, okay, great. But ultimately, that's how the setup is. Because if it was something else, you could ask another question. Why isn't it like that? Now, suppose it's like that. And you say, well, why isn't it like that? So you could never kind of stop asking a question. Why is it? Right? Why is it like this? Because that's how it is. Okay? So these two powers are required to produce this world and to hide information. And when information is hidden from the standpoint of the single individual, that translates to I don't know. The common experience of all beings, I don't know. Why don't you know? Because I don't know. And then you have to remove, right? You have to go to a class and start learning Spanish. That means Spanish is hidden from you, but it's not hidden for someone else. Because they went through the process of removing that ignorance of Spanish, but you are yet to go through the process. So it's like this. So now you must ask yourself, what do I want to remove ignorance about? Cooking? Okay, you can do that. Knitting? You can also do that. The nature of you? You can also do that. And that's free will. It's all knowledge, yeah. Yeah, it's all knowledge. Yeah, it's all knowledge. It's just like, one projector, right, is illuminating on the wall, on a substratum, right? Let's say, 30 characters, right? And they're all like different. Like in one character is different from another and all talking to each other. Talking. But it's on the whole thing's projected from one knowledge, from one vikshepa. Right? So one vikshepa projects many, and from the standpoint, on the substratum of consciousness, it seems like we're all now different characters talking to each other. That's just how the setup is. And I tell you, when I heard this answer, I had questions like, why do we have why is creation like this? Why are we sort of here, and why can we just not rest in this one awareness? And not go through this process of having classes and, dinosaurs and evolution and being hungry and all of this stuff. Why? A simple answer, which I finally found at peace. That's how it is. What do you want? What else do you want to hear? You can philosophize until you turn blue in the face. Simple answer. That's how it is. Okay.
But also in science, it's always falsified. I mean, they never... Sometimes a genius discovers some kind of natural law, but then later on it seems to be just a bit different, no? And it's always sort of...
Yeah.
We'll never find out about it.
Yeah, what I do also love about science is that they're very, they use rationale. They don't allow things just to slip by. And, if I cannot prove it right now, it has no merit. It has to be validated in my experience in life. It has to be observed somehow. So Vedanta has this approach where we just, we don't let things slip. We use, certain methodology by which we can arrive to these truths. So science actually helps Vedanta a lot. And that's why I adore science, because it's, it has so many great methods by which you can see how do we discover that the universe is expanding, right? How do you do that? Well, because certain frequency of light, right, changes depending on how far the distance of the star is, or the light can take longer. And how do you discover how far light travels and how fast light travels? They have certain formulas for this. And there's so many minds go into science. It's unbelievable. We're talking Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Einstein, even Ramanujan, the great mathematician, it's just very scientific and precise. So, a lot of inspiration can be gained from these fields. Yes?
So I have a hard time to understand the creation theory with the cycle.
If creation began, then you got to ask yourself, that means time was already there. Because when we say creation, or jagat, right? Creation, what we're including is time and space also, and objects. Okay? Time, space, and objects is included in this word creation, or in Sanskrit, jagat. So now if you say it began for the first time ever, that means, when? On a Sunday at 2 o'clock? Right? So this means time was already there once upon a time. So by that's one way to show that you cannot begin something, because to begin, you have to also, right, create time and space. But time and space is creation. So creation goes through cycles, manifest, unmanifest. Now, when we say cycle, just if you imagine like a little circle, okay? So, and this circle is knowledge and power, okay? Knowledge and power. Knowledge and power. Now, knowledge and power can either be in manifest, or unmanifest, okay? So either it is manifesting time, space, and objects, or it is not manifesting time, space, and objects. So this means knowledge and power, what is eternal? Remember how we said knowledge and power is pravaha nityatvam? Nityatvam. So this means it is eternally flowing. So this means all knowledge, all power, very important, is forever. It's eternal. It never ends. There's no ending. When you say manifest and unmanifest, is that ending? No, it's not. Because all knowledge, all power is always there. It's either visible as an effect, or it's not visible as anything. Time is just an effect of knowledge and power. Okay? So, in other words, knowledge and power is always there. Why? Because awareness is always there. Is this clear so far? So awareness is forever, eternal. There's no ending to awareness, and there's no beginning to awareness, and there's no ending to awareness. But we also said awareness enjoys the capacity to manifest. And that capacity is knowledge power. It's not so knowledge power is not an attribute of awareness, because, look, knowledge power manifests and unmanifests. If knowledge power was stuck to awareness, then what will keep on happening? That means awareness will keep on manifesting and unmanifesting. But who would know about that? Right? What constant would know about manifestation and demanifestation of an object? Okay? Because knowledge power constantly manifests, unmanifests, unmanifests, manifests. But there is a knower, like your thought, it manifests and it unmanifests. But there is a substratum in whose presence it is known that a thought is manifesting and unmanifesting. Okay? So, when we talk about awareness enjoying the capacity to manifest the universe, this capacity is knowledge power. This capacity goes through manifest and unmanifest. When it goes through manifest, what happens? You have the beginning of a new creation, which includes time, space, objects. When knowledge power unmanifests, then creation, including time, space, and objects, resolves. And then again, knowledge power manifests. What does it create? Time, space, and objects. And then again, knowledge power, total the solution of the universe, the whole thing unmanifests. And why does it go on forever? Because knowledge power is not apart from awareness, awareness, and awareness is eternal. Therefore, knowledge power is also eternal. And since knowledge power eternally exists, so does manifestation and unmanifestation of the universe. Maybe another example is, I'll just, very simple, just go like this.
Is it then the same universe is getting created again?
Sorry?
If the universe is unmanifested and then again manifested, is it then the same?
Yeah, it's different because there is a continuity from the last cycle of creation. So it's not like it's a different creation. It just goes into a macrocosmic dissolution. There is no time, there is no space, and then again there is another creation that comes by. So like this. So if you imagine like a circle, right? Where should I put a beginning here? If I put it here, is that a beginning? In reference to what? But if I do this, this is a beginning in reference to this part. But here, no matter where you put, in reference to what part is this the beginning? In other words, that's why we say in the Vedas, creation is circular. You cannot put a beginning to it. It's just always going into manifest, unmanifest. Manifest, unmanifest.
It's only possible if it's vivarta, not real change. Else it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, so it's yeah, I mean that's now vivarta. I'm not gonna put that here, but it's it's not an actual change, but it doesn't have some context. I don't want to put it into this teaching now. Okay. So what Simon wants to say is, yes, it seems like it's creation is taking place, but it's nothing but knowledge, right? Just reshuffling itself. In other words, it's the same knowledge. It's not like there's two knowledges. Knowledge is knowledge. Information about the universe is information about the universe. Total knowledge, total power, constantly reshuffling right now to be manifesting as time, space, and objects. So even when you say time, it's nothing but knowledge. Okay? Knowledge power. Space, knowledge power. So we just give names to knowledge power from different standpoints. And the subtlest of knowledge power that you can give is the subtlest effect. The subtlest effect of knowledge power that you can name is time and space. Okay? Because everything is within time and space. Okay? So time and space is an effect. So knowledge power is the cause. And what's the subtlest effect of knowledge power? Time and space. And what's slightly grosser than time and space? Now whatever you want, right? You can say quarks and so on. Okay, etc. But all of it, whether you talk about time, space, quarks, all the way up to a tree, all of that are names for knowledge power. And knowledge power has no existence without awareness. In other words, within awareness, knowledge power. Okay?
My mind comes up with a question when we have, or as we have, endless cycles of creation, manifestation and manifestation, and we have infinite jivas whose main task is to wake up to attain moksha.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't all the jivas by now attained moksha, as we have already infinite cycles, and then everybody would be out of the game?
There's this confusion where we think that you're an infinite jiva, right? You're not an infinite jiva, like eternal jiva. A jiva is anadi, not anantam. Anadi means without a beginning. Jiva is the only existence in creation that is anadi, that means beginningless. So this means everything is beginningless in creation. Jiva is the only thing in creation that is not anantam, eternal. That means, now you've probably heard this before, the eternal jiva. You've heard this before? The most confusing thing ever. You have to put, because that is a literal meaning, you have to put the implied meaning. The jiva has capacity to be eternal, but the jiva is not eternal. Okay? So jiva can end at some point. Yes, jiva is beginningless, but jiva can end at some point. Now, the question you're asking is, why have not all jivas, right, ended so far? Because the universe is, infinite in itself. Infinity, 1 minus infinity equals how much? Infinity. Okay, so it's an infinite creation, and the setup is such that, it's never going to happen. Because look at this, here's the logic. If this creation is beginningless, and you had a limited amount of jivas, suppose 1,000, by now, you would have all gone. So just the fact that this world is occupied by insects, which is also, right, jivas, bacteria, germs, ants, how many, colonies of ants there are, and then how many ants within each colony, and fish is just trillions upon trillions upon trillions just on Earth, just in this 100-year period. Never mind all of the jivas before. And that is just Bhuloka, Earth. Never mind Svargaloka and Pitraloka and Patala and all of these other worlds that I mentioned. And then the Vedas goes further. There are infinite worlds. Infinite worlds. Infinite universes. So whatever we're looking in this universe and we're going, wow, amazing universe. There's only one universe out of infinity. Cannot fathom it. It's so large. The only thing you can really do is recognize one content that inheres in all things. In Chandogya Upanishad, the father Uddalaka says that, to his son Shvetaketu, do you know that knowledge, knowing which, once known, everything at once becomes known? Huh? How do I know one knowledge? And once I know that one knowledge, everything at once becomes known? Because if you know chapter 1, you don't know chapter 2. If you know chapter 2, you don't know chapter 3. If you know science, you don't know geography. If you know geography, you don't know history. And yet knowledge, knowing which, once known, everything at once becomes known? What is this kind of knowledge, Father? And then the father Uddalaka tells him, and that knowledge is the substance of time and space and knowledge and you, which is knowledge and power. And knowledge and power has no reality without awareness. So this means I don't have to understand everything in this universe. That's a long journey. I only have to understand knowledge, power. Because we've done an analysis, everything reduces into knowledge and power. Concepts. Everything. Therefore, you say then, what's the relationship between concepts and awareness? Satya Mithya relationship. Concept has no reality without awareness. Awareness remains free of the concepts. Just like the awareful being remains free of their potential constantly manifesting the dream world. Whatever the potential changes into, you, the awareful being, never take that on. Okay?
So the number that the Shastra is given about the jivas is about this different species of jivas and not the absolute number of jivas, right?
Yeah, so not the absolute. There are infinite jivas, and I think you're referring to, there's one part about how many jivas. There is also other statements that state that there's just infinite jivas all over. Yeah. Logic, just pure logic, okay? We don't even have to know what they said. If there was limited amount of jivas, and since this creation is beginningless, and I've already pointed out the logic of why it's beginningless, then by now there should be nothing, because we've all had infinite amount of time backwards to work our stuff up, to work out our stuff. But more and more and more jivas keep on being born. In fact, you could have asked the same question in 1500s, and you say, yeah, you got 1 billion jivas, no more are coming. We've got a limited amount of supply. Year 2024, you ask the same question, 8 billion. You ask the question on a different period, you got 20 billion jivas. I don't know how Earth is going to survive that. I think it will. 20 billion. We will have a 20 billion population.
So you said that the jiva is beginningless, but then you said it ends, and that's merely the idea, the idea.
Yes, yes. Got it. So as long because awareness is eternal, that's why jiva has the capacity to go on eternal. Because I think I am, right, this body-mind. Now remember, body-mind is just a manifestation of knowledge power. And knowledge power is never away from awareness. So awareness is eternal, knowledge power is eternal, and I think I'm one of the manifestations of knowledge power. Therefore, I continue as a jiva for as long as I wish. I have a capacity to go on eternally, but in actuality, every jiva individually, when they find their identity, right, ends. That means every individual jiva ends. I'm not saying every jiva ends, but individual jiva ends. And how does a jiva end? Well, you shift your identity. Now, when I say shift your identity, what do you mean? How do you shift identity? Like what moves? Nothing moves. If I'm telling you right now, there is a one constant about you which never undergoes any change. And that constant is available all the time. If you're connecting to my words right now, and there is understanding what I'm saying, then your identity is changed. Your identity has, quote, shifted. If I'm saying there's something about you which never gets tainted, which is always the same, which just lights up all of the changes, and in you there's something about you that is constant, and you know it. Wow, it's known to be yourself, and you have no doubts about it. And while I'm saying this, you're going, huh? Huh? Then your identity has not shifted yet. Okay? So it's only a matter of time when identity is shifted, meaning you have come to a point where what we're talking about, the words of the Upanishads, you are connecting, you're connecting. Yes, I got it. Sadharana, common. That's called moksha. Okay? And it's not a big deal because awareness was there all along with you. We just sort of superimposed our body onto it, and we thought it is something what it's not.
What I haven't quite gotten yet is when you said that it's still up to Ishvara's grace. When I resolve the ownership of body and mind, how can still there be another... Got
it. Another intervening factor which kind of decides, right? So the reason we say that is for your security. So it's like a backup plan, right? Because it's so easy to, to say, it's very clear to me, Andrea, I've heard other teachers, and I can see it on people's faces, right? And you're kind of like walking proudly, here and there, and it creates a person that closes their mind down, right? They stop learning. So out of humility, we say, ultimately Ishvara has the last say when the person dies. Even if you're clear, ultimately Ishvara has the last say, because you cannot risk it. Because the moment a person says, I've got it, then it closes the mind down and they gain this false confidence in themselves. And then you miss basically 10 years of no growth. And then you get reborn. So now I missed 10 years of growth because I convinced myself in a previous life that I got it. So that's why we say this journey goes until last breath.
That's what James called enlightenment sickness. When you're fit,
Okay. Wow. But see, the important thing is it doesn't last, because the way that Ishvara is designed is it's designed to pop your bubble eventually. It cannot last. It can go up to 30 or 40 years as far as I've seen. Maybe it can go longer for some people. But it's the way that it's made is more pain starts to arise. It just starts to arise. Physical pain, symptoms, depression, they just keep on arising. And the system is made to save you from your own, kind of self-destruction. And this is good. So look at this. Emotional pain is not even pain, just emotional indicators are neither positive nor negative. They're just indicators. Emotions are neither positive nor negative. They're just indicators letting me know how aligned I am to Ishvara. So I cannot know if I've really got it. But one thing for guaranteed I can know is, how do I experience myself right now? Am I at ease with myself? Am I at peace with myself? Okay? That is your emotional indicator, which can tell you, right, how keeping with this knowledge you really are.
Andre, I just want to ask you, because you say time and space are the subtlest, but where would you place then the mind or the subtle body in this thing?
Okay, good point. Okay, so Ellie. Okay, so we said that it's going to be the same principle. So knowledge, power, okay? And then if you do Tattva Bodha, right, we will say that the first, right, the even subtler is now your mind, basically, right? Your subtle matter of the mind. And then you can say time, space, objects. So the point is, both of the categories are within, right, manifestations of knowledge power. Okay, so the mind is for being able to grasp what time space means. So this means the mind has to be subtler than time and space in order to postulate, to think about, to hypothesize about time and space. That's why you can have Einstein, right, thinking about the time relativity or time dilation. So you're able to discuss time. Why? Because the mind is subtler than time. Yeah. So I think I said self-reflection, self-inquiry, just thinking about connections between things, thinking about, right, about, the weather system and, how it's connected to other things. So it gets your mind moving because we don't think. We just look at the weather, go, oh, it's weather, it's falling rain. Okay, but then, the mind, the more sophisticated it gets, it's able to connect causes and effects. This is an attribute of all teachers and scientists. They're able to connect different things. Okay? And inquiry is exactly the same, to be able to connect. Why am I feeling this? What could be the cause of this? What triggered it? What came before this thought arose? What did I think before this feeling came by? What was I thinking? How did I wake up today? And what took place yesterday for me to wake up like this? And how can I handle this emotion that's coming up right now in the light of the knowledge? And if I cannot, can I do a little prayer? If I can't do a prayer, maybe I can go outside. And then you go outside and you start to look at the birds and the trees and the sounds and you see how it's all entering my mind. And then you start to analyze that, how it's all nothing but knowledge and power manifesting as those trees. And knowledge and power manifest inside my awareness as now, which is commonly all known to me right now. Right? So, right, yeah, so it's, right.
So, what you say, bottom line is connection from me, who I think I am, to the environment, to outside. Okay, that's one.
Good.
And the other was Satyamitya research.
Satyamitya.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So I get what you're saying now. So in other words, you take any form and then you start to reduce it down and you see it reduces into knowledge and power. And knowledge power rests in awareness. So that is how not to turn Brahman or awareness into an object. You have to do this analysis. And the second, we said that mental reminders. So again, wherever my mind goes, see, the mind's always going to give you ideas whether you got this or not. So there's a mental reminder. You say, wherever there's thought is going, there is a knower of that thought, which is always going to be I, me. And that me is the final reality. Okay? So this means there's always some light illuminator of the thought. And that illuminator, you're never away from. And even if you say, am I away from the illuminator? Even that thought is illumined by the illuminator. Therefore, I never went away. That means a thought cannot displace you. Okay? So these two methods were provided to answer the question, if you think you know Brahman well, you know Brahman little. And then I provided two methods by which not to fall for the trap of turning awareness into some feeling or sensation or a thought, how, you know, it should occur next retreat, or it should occur, right, next time. It's always with you. Having gone through those 3 stages of, right, listening and deeply ascertaining this knowledge, which we said tat parya nishchaya. So what is not only listening, but a genuine, sincere desire that this takes place. Lord, please help me to integrate this deeply into my being. It is my sincere desire. Like this, simple prayer. You're genuine. You genuinely want to change. Okay? And thereby, by listening, you're slowly understanding. Now, when it comes to the second stage, mananam, then you ask yourself, having heard this, do I actually relate to what I've heard? Does it strike a chord? Does it touch me? Does it like ring something in me? Does it, right, bring something out of me? And the answer could be no, right? It's like all these words, you know, tatparya nishchaya, sopadika, this. And then you just kind of bring it down to ordinary English, ordinary language, and you say, where am I connecting? Where do I connect these words? And then you go through this process of asking yourself the question and bringing this knowledge in reference to your experiences. And sometimes we need to ask a question to the teacher, and that requires some vulnerability, some, right, fear, right, like, oh, should I ask? What will others think of me? And something holds us back. But every time we do bring ourselves forward, it actually is so healing to do that, especially in front of other people. It's just healing. There's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I never read it because the title gives it away. And I highly recommend you read it. And I read this book when I was 17, and it changed my life because the title is so powerful. I read the title, in other words, right? And I think it's great. In other words, if there is fear, right, the apprehension, I don't want to, I mean, I'm not going to say you should or not, but I found it personally such a lovely thing, a beautiful thing to do it anyway. Just do it anyway. And, you know, it starts out very hard, but it becomes very, very, very fun. Eventually, sometimes I'll go to, you know, whatever show, and then I'll just get up and start do a little bit of rapping, whatever. I don't care. I don't care if I fail, right? I just do it. And, you know, and people will forget about you anyway. They won't think about you. So, and it can be very healing to ask questions and to have that relationship with the teacher. That's where a lot of healing is. For me personally, reason why Nima is my teacher is because I need a friend. I don't need someone that's up there and I have to look at them as up there. I need a friend. And I found that so healing just to have someone that you can joke with, smile with, you know, have a nice conversation with. But at the same time, when she's sitting in class, I put myself in a stage of, I sit down, right, like Petra's doing, I'm just a student. When the class is over, we're just friends. It's like this. So we also have to know what kind of a relationship do you need to help heal you, because just to be with, you know, close by, it itself is so important in this tradition. Okay, because it makes you see this person who has this knowledge, they're just ordinary person, and that helps you relate with them, and that heals that, you know, that wounded child of, oh, I need some, you know, some high person, I'm not good enough, and you realize we're just equals.
I can relate to the shyness and fear to approach you in this case.
Right.
So what you're telling about Nima, how do you look at like this audience? Because I feel I have a lot of thoughts like I can't approach you, I can't. So what is your offering to your students? How do you? Because I don't want to take up your time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bubbles here
Yeah.
that stop me from connecting in ways that I deep down would like to do.
Yeah, so, you know, we are kind of connecting already, you know, at dinner. So it's not some big thing, you know, just once in a while you have a nice conversation. And I guess time is also limited, so, you know, we don't have a lot of time together. But
like 3 months ago, I was like, I'm going to write him an email just to clear my mind. I never send it. Out of fear.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, so these are some things that, we need to overcome through time. Sometimes we can just send a short, simple email. If you don't want to send anything, that's fine. But just that familiarity with a person is important. Yeah. And I found it to be just very, very, very healing. It can be online familiarity, offline familiarity. So, but if you don't have physical teacher, obviously I'm not here all the time, it's a little bit more challenging, but retreat is enough. Retreat is enough. In fact, that's how I developed my relationship, through retreats once a year. Yeah, nothing special. Okay.
Can I ask something about praying? Like you said, Lord, can you help me for this or that? To whom are you praying then? Because it's not a door in the sky, Lord, God.
Yeah.
So you're praying to yourself, actually.
Yeah, without putting philosophy, you're only praying to one, right? Without that, you're reassuring yourself, number one. You're telling your mind that this is very important for me. Because when we pray, we're actually investing time, and you only invest time in those things that are, right, you treasure, that enrich your life. So number one, it's letting you know that this is very enriching for me. I need this. I want this. It's like a loud affirmation. It's a clear, explicit affirmation. And second of all, every action is a cause, and every cause returns an effect. And therefore, when you pray, you're not only letting yourself know this is important for me, but also you're increasing the chances of your direction in your life now being focused, more focused. But who are you praying to? You're always praying to Ishvara. Okay? All that is here is intelligence. And intelligence is responding. It responds. It's obligated to respond because you're putting a cause into the field. And by the way that the law works, of law of karma, law of compensation, it has to return some result to you. So you're actually asking Ishvara, increase the chances of something coming to me. I want you to make those factors more conducive in my favor. You're actually calling that possibility. You're increasing the chance of that happening through your prayer. Yeah, brilliant. So brilliant. And form, I have form too. Look, I have Shiva here. Sometimes it's Saraswati, but all of the Saraswati knowledge, right? Om Aim Saraswati Aye Namaha. So this is the Bija mantra to invoke Saraswati and help you to, improve your memorization, your recall, and to give you more knowledge. And I chant this every single morning. Yeah. So in other words, the point is not, let's now go to Saraswati. What I want to say is, who are you generally interested in, and what do you need in this life? If you need resources, to have your life enriched, then we pray to Lakshmi. Now, what is this Lakshmi, Saraswati? Are they like these people over there sitting on a lotus flower, distributing wealth to other people? This is how we look at it. No. All we mean when we say Ganesha, Saraswati, right? Brahma, and Ganapati, etc. They're just names for all knowledge, all power. And Vedic culture, right, beautifully portrays them in certain characters that you can relate to. So when you relate to the character, you're not relating to a statue. You're relating to the intelligent cause, to Ishvara, who is manifesting in the aspect of that one who distributes wealth. That means when I use my free will and I want to know things, then I pray to Saraswati. But I am praying to Ishvara, Ishvara's law, which distributes knowledge to those who ask it, which governs the distribution of knowledge and memory and understanding things. Therefore, I pray to that one. So this means you can say, instead of saying, Dear Ishvara, you can say Saraswati, because that hones in your focus. That means this specifically, Out of all of the things from knowledge power they can give me, I want the aspect which makes my knowledge more firm, deeper. And that aspect is called Saraswati. Therefore, you choose Saraswati. If you need to overcome certain obstacles in your life and make it easier just to flow through challenges, which is, coming almost every day for some of us, then we can invoke the same Ishvara, but now we call it Ganapati or Ganesha. Right? Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And we also have a Bija mantra for that. Okay? So this is the beauty of the tradition, is that it's all offered to you. Whatever you want, you can have it. That's that you treasure. Having gone through this Shravanam, right, which is really a lifelong process, Mananam, removing doubts, thinking about it, just generally thinking about it, and Nididhyasanam is connecting things, ensuring that you understand how is this connected to that and this connected to that. This means we have a certain flexibility. If you just follow the strict linear system, step 1, step 2, step 3, then the moment we start to mention something at the end, you're like, oh, no, can you bring it back to the beginning? So the person has to get a little bit flexible about what they understand. And Nididhyasanam helps you loosen up this rigidity of the mind that it has to be like this and not like that. Okay? So Nididhyasanam shakes your mind up with this. And this culminates to 3 possible stages that any seeker can go through. And we will see what these 3 stages are. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.